All right. Hello, everyone. Sorry about that. Ecamm Live's a little bit weird. I really like the application, but apparently when you're a couple minutes late for your own live stream, it doesn't show up in like the upcoming events. So I had to kind of dig around and find it. Always something when you're live streaming. Oh, speaking of which, don't even have my Elgato key light on. There we go. Much nicer. Let's make sure all the settings are correct to that point because I fired things up in a frenzy. All right, I can hear the chat well. Hey, Samuel. Hey, Gerjan. Yes. I'm still working on it every day. Every day I work on it. Okay. All right, yeah, thank you all for joining live again. So let me get some things set up. We'll let people trickle in since I started a few minutes late, and I'll kind of talk about what I'm going to build. So let's do a git checkout -b model order by property. All right, and then git fetch upstream, which will be Laravel's repo, and then git reset -- hard upstream 9.x. All right, cool. So this should be the latest 9.x work that's out there for Laravel. I'm going to put this, oh, whoops, let's turn off messages. Oh, well, I forgot that yesterday too. It used to be so easy, you could just click. I feel so complainy this morning of like old man the past, but you used to be able to just like control click or alt click that and it would immediately turn off your notifications. But now you gotta like do 6 clicks and pick how long, and that's lame. It was a better experience before is the point. Okay, so what I want to do today is bring up PHP Storm and the framework, and let's talk about kind of this faux property I want to add to Laravel. And basically, I'm trying to think. Let's just go into the model. I think we can all get the idea from the model. Is it database model or Eloquent model? I think it is database model. Okay, so what I want to do here is basically add a property for orderBy. And after giving it a little bit of thought, I think in a previous stream, I think I'm going to make it an array. And the reason I can make it an array is not only multiple, but of course you can have key value pairs like, starts at, descending, of course, right? You'd be able to specify the direction, if you will, of the order. And then of course, if you want to just go shorthand, you can just say something like, order by name, right? Or last name, not cast name, last name. So if you didn't specify a direction, it would default to Laravel's default, which is ascending. So this would be the same thing as this. And I kind of like this. I'm pretty sure this existed in Rails. It's just a really quick way to order your stuff. Like if we go look at like Laravel order records, there's like a silly Stack Overflow example, which is like it's just kind of like grim. You can actually like, basically you have to like set up your boot method. You have to put like boot in there, and then you have to say like, static, add global, whatever, and then you have to either define it or make a scope or whatever. So it's a lot of stuff to do something, in my opinion, which feels like, this might be a rather common thing. Let me know in the chat if it is or isn't, but I've had to do it on a few recent projects and some refactors in Shift to, kind of order the shifts. And it felt like kind of heavy for something that seemed like a common use case. Maybe it's not, let me know. Maybe people are ordering explicitly in their query builder statements, or chains, I don't know. Maybe you don't need everything ordered or something like that, but I don't know. Again, we'll see. This is what I'm going to work on today. We're going to kind of PR this. And it's up to the Laravel team if it gets merged or not, but I think it'd be fun to work on. So let's kind of back out all those changes. All right, we're clean, and we actually do want to stay in models. And what I'd like to do is, I'm just gonna follow, not to clutter up model, I'm just gonna kind of follow Laravel conventions. I like to kind of do this anytime I'm kind of adding something. I just kind of look at other parts of the framework and like add it as well. So we'll just say something like has order or something. This isn't necessarily going to be the final approach, but let's just kind of start here. And again, this is all super naive. I'm just gonna go at it from here. So let's do public function initialize has order. And I don't think the initialize stuff callbacks take anything. I know there's two methods that you can call. You can call like boot and then the trait name, and you can call like initialize and the trait name. And I think that's what we're gonna do here. Boot's static, and we're probably gonna, to that point, we're probably gonna wanna add like that protected orderBy property. And we'll leave it alone for now. And before I PR this, I'll add all the fancy Laravel, doc block comments. But let's just see if we can get it working, and then kind of backfill a test to prove that it works. So what we're gonna do here is just like anything else, we'll just do a static call to add global scope, and the scope will, again, this is probably gonna need to be changed, but I'm just gonna say something like default orderBy. And then this will just be a function, and I think it looks like it gets an instance of the builder. I think it's Eloquent builder. And here is where we would say some stuff. So, two things here. First, since this is an array, we would actually need to loop over orderBy as column and direction. I think is a pretty common name for that. Oh, whoops, of course this is this orderBy, and since it's related to the class, we won't need to do a use statement here. So now the tricky part is if is int column. So if column's an integer, meaning like, I got rid of that, but meaning you didn't specify a key effectively, then we would just say this orderBy, or well, no, it's not this, it's builder orderBy. There we go. And that would be direction, actually. It's a little bit goofy. All right. And then I guess else, I kind of hate writing if else's, but whatever. We can see if, again, let's just take this first pass and we can see if we can clean this up later. Else, this would be like order by column direction. This was pretty straightforward. Yeah. So if it's unkeyed, meaning you got a 0 index or 1 or whatever PHP assigned it, then just use column or use direction as the column name, because column's the index. Otherwise, it's the assumption that you passed in a key value pair of column and direction. So that's going to add the global scope. We need to do a couple other things here. So we need to say if empty, we could say orderBy, or well, I keep doing that. If this orderBy is empty, then we would just return. There's no initialization to do. And then one more trick. This actually, I believe, this initialize gets called, the difference between boot and initialize is boot, I think, happens once statically for the class. That's why it's a static method. Whereas initialize is going to get called every time an instance is created, an instance of the model. And so that, we wouldn't want to add this static global scope all the time, right? Every time an instance is created. So I think we would want to do another if check that said if static has global scope, there it is, default orderBy. return. Okay, so if it's already been set up or you don't have order by, then these are kind of our guard clauses. Otherwise, it's going to add this for your model, a default order by scope. A couple things, again, I don't like about this. I kind of don't like using initialize, but boot's static and it doesn't allow us access to that property because it's a static method, so we don't have access to the instance property, which is kind of lame. And then, yeah, that's the main thing I don't like about it, in fairness. I guess the other thing is, like, we kind of have this magic name, and I suppose you could have this in your code, but that's kind of why I'm committing it to Laravel 9. It could be a breaking change if you have something called default order by as a scope. So I can live with these two things because we kind of need them. But again, if Laravel team knows a better way, they can tweak this to be more awesome. Hey Daryl, how's it going? Samuel, Mark, thanks for joining. So that's really it. I mean, again, this is I didn't find it on Stack Overflow, but this is really the same code that you would write yourself, more or less, if you wrote some kind of generic order by scope. We're just building it into the framework and having it get toggled on for models if you have set that property. So let's write a test for this. Let's look at one of these. Excuse me. Let's look at one of these other tests. I'm going to look at, let's just go down the line here. Has attributes is probably a little nasty. Let's look at has events. Nope. Events test, maybe? Database model custom events with custom without events. Let's look at this. What's this? Okay, so I'm going to drive this out with a test now and kind of get this to work. So, or make sure it's working. It should be working. Okay, so it looks like they are doing a database test case. We probably will need a database since we're going to be interacting with records. So they define a migration, they create some models, they run save. Oh, okay, and it looks like they have like a local model that they set up with a saving event. Okay, that makes sense because this is events. So let's actually copy this and let's do Eloquent Model has order test, I guess, kind of testing the trait, if you will. And then let's open that, close that, and let's say Eloquent Model has order test. Perfect. Okay, and then let's make our own little migration. Let's just use the classic post example here, and we'll just have a string for a title for the post. It's not nullable. And maybe we have a string for a slug. I think this is probably enough to get started. So we could say something now, another test case. There we go. So test, it adds a global scope for model. All right. And so what we would want to do here is we'd really just say something like model equals post create, really nothing fancy about it. And then we would just say this assert true, model has global scope, I guess. And again, I don't like this hardcore name here, but we'll kind of just see what the team thinks about it. So yeah, so first of all, we should just make sure it adds a global scope for model. All right, so there it is. And then we would probably want to say something like test default ordering for model. Okay, and then kind of the same thing, but we'd actually want to make some models now. So we could say something like post 1, post 2, post 3, and let's kind of just build, let's kind of build these up. So we'll say that, and we'll say, actually, let's single line these. We'll say title, I think is what we called it, will be post 1. I'll clean that up here in a minute. And we'll say slug is, post 1, I guess, right? And so we'd need to do something a little funny here where this is like 2, and then this is like also 2, but here's maybe like 22 or something. So it looks a little funny, but I think it'll help. So we don't need to save them. Now we could say something like post equal post all, right? And then we would say assert count 3 for posts. Just make sure that we got all 3, just kind of a sanity check there. And then we could say something like assert true that, is this the expected? Oh, yeah, of course. So we would assert that posts, basically that the first post is post 1, right? And we could just do this for all the different orders. Now, if we go look at first, I think it's really just array first, which is like an array get. The point here is that I think, just to make these symmetrical, let's do get 0, get 1, get 2, and then this would actually be 3, and this would actually be 2, right? Because if we're going to order these by the title and then the slug, for example, to prove that duplicate or being able to do two-way ordering, we're going to kind of want to mix these up. So to that point, let's write this now. So this is going to be a post model. Posts, we don't need any timestamps. Turn off guarded. We don't need the boot method, but we are now going to add our protected orderBy property. Look at that, PHP Storm's already picking it up. And based on what we set up here, we would want to order it by name. So post 2, post 2, those are going to get ordered in order, but the separator will now be ordering by slug. In this case, let's pass it a direction. So we're not going to pass anything for, I keep doing that, title is what I really mean. And then, but slug, let's say descending. So this will kind of test out in an integration way, not passing in, you know, again, a key value pair, and then passing in a key value pair to demonstrate that it's not defaulting to ascending, therefore descending, which I think should yield the right order. So based on title, these will be ordered in the manner that they are, 1, 2, 3. But the slug now, post 22, will be descending over post 2. So that should be correct. I'm hearing some stuff in the chat, so maybe my logic is wrong. Nope. Hey Lee, how's it going? Just waving hi. All right, cool. Let's keep rocking here. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to fire up Docker, so I apologize if the stream gets a little slow for a second. Let's see if this passes. And I would be kind of surprised if it does. I mean, I guess not super surprised, but I would be skeptic. So we will break it if it somehow passes perfectly on the first run. Okay, let's bring up our, I think we should be able to use the shift runner. It's using PHP 8. That's just a little Docker image I use locally when we're testing out shift. Okay, cool. So first things first, let's do composer update because I probably don't have all the latest stuff. So this might take just a second. And while that's coming back up, let's go back and kind of review this. So we're going to initialize this for any model. The has order trait. So this is on all models, so it's just going to be initialized for every model. And then if we've already defined the order by, then we return. If you didn't even specify an order by, or you just made an empty array or whatever, it's going to return. So those are our guard clauses. Otherwise, that particular model is going to get a global scope for default order by that effectively chains on the appropriate order by statement based on your property. Pretty straightforward stuff. Composer's still going. So for our test, we basically just kind of make a model and assert that it has that global scope because we've set one. Cool. And then it gotta be nice to have a test in here that says doesn't add a global scope. So we might do that too. So test case does not add global scope for unset property, or how about a little more human, when property is not set. All right, and then we could just do something like model equals model. Is model an abstract class? Create, can I just create some fake model? I don't know if I can or can't. Let's find out. It is abstract. Crap. I would have to make another model in here, which is not ideal. I kind of don't want to do that. I could make like an inline model that just uses the post table. Kind of ugly, but I could say something like, you know, post 2 and just make a little definition down there. But here we would say assert false effectively. There we go. All right, cool. Let's just do that. It doesn't hurt anything. So we'll just make a post 2 table. It's still going to use post, no timestamp, and no order by property, I guess. I don't know. How about unordered post, or post unordered maybe? I don't know. Who cares what the name is? Post 2 is fine. It's just a test. Let's put this here. There we go. Okay. Got everything going here. Let's copy our test path. Vendor bin PHP unit. That. Okay, either I have an infinite loop or Docker just crashed on me. One of the two. We'll give that just a second. Again, I've been having, I need to like uninstall and reinstall Docker. So, comment. I don't know what that means. Let's see what the comment is. All right, let's restart. Yeah, that's what I get. So Docker must have hung. Let's let it restart for a second. Did I miss something? What's the comment? Post unordered create. Yeah, should be fine. Like I'm not deleting any records or anything, so there really shouldn't be any test pollution in that table. So should be all good. Let's let Docker restart and we'll try this again. I definitely expect these first 2 tests to pass. I'm not so certain about this. And then if we have time, there's one more thing I want to add. We'll see. We'll see how long it takes. Did Docker fire back up? Yes, it did. All right, cool. So let's run vendor bin PHP unit that. There we go. Must have been Docker yet again. Okay, not null constraint failed post title. Oh, duh. That's why they made it nullable. Okay, so I think we'll need to create a post. So we'll say something like title. Oops, let's actually make an array here. So title is this is a test. And then slug, this is a test. Cool. All right, that should fix that. Let's try this again. Whoa, all green, headshot. Watch out. Let's break that because I don't trust it. Let's make title descending. That should definitely mess things up. Ah, got my tabs all wrong there. Failed asserting that true is false. Or failed asserting that false is true, line 43. Let's go check that out. Line 43. There it is, post 0, or sorry, the first post in post all is not post 1, which makes sense because we are reverse ordering these now by title. So it should be this one that's first, so it should be 3. So let's just change this to 3 and see if we get an error on the next line. Failed asserting that false is true. Line 44, yes, indeed. Okay, so that should be 2 and 1. These should effectively be in reverse order now. So let's see if this passes. And it does. Okay, cool. I'm going to put this back to the way it was just to test that non-property, and this works. There we have it. There's an orderBy property on models right there. Dunzo. So here's the other thing I'd like to add. Again, playing into Laravel, playing into its conventions, it's not just in the way I write code, it's also in the developer experience. So what I want to also do is, if we think about the global scopes that Laravel comes with, think of, for example, soft deletes, right? I would want to be able to say something like posts equals post without, default order by or something like that, right? Or without default ordering. It's kind of long, but the point is, if I said something like this, I would want to be able to get the posts in their original order. So I would want to be able to say something like this, and it would be 2, 3, right? It would just be the order they were created, or based on your database, probably the primary key, right? So I'd want to be able to say something like that. That would be really cool. So obviously if we run this, call to undefined method, post without ordering. So that's not going to work so well. So just to kind of prove this for a second that it would work, let's just add this static property here. So let's just say public static function without default ordering. And let's just, all we're really going to need to do here is forward this call on to remove, is it remove global scope or without? I think it's without global. Oh, that is a builder property. Yeah, this is model related. I'd have to have access to like the query and then say without global scope, default order by. Does that work? Without default ordering cannot be called statically. I think this is where the lines blur between Eloquent and the query builder, or the database query builder. Even though a lot of the calls are forwarded on and you can call things in a static capacity, this really would need to be on the builder. Let's see how soft deletes does it. Soft deletes. They got a trait. They're using boot soft delete with a new soft delete scope, so they add it in boot, which kind of gets around the other stuff, but then they initialize stuff by injecting into the cast. Do they have like a without or with trashed or whatever here? Trashed, restoring. So they have all this stuff that I was kind of getting at. They're calling this though. How do they get access to the builder? Restore, run soft delete, perform delete, not force delete. This is, it's not in here. Is it in the scope? Apply, where null. Yeah, okay, that's the scope itself. Extend the query builder with the needed functions. Interesting. So they call this add extension. So they call add, what is this? Add with trashed. So somewhere in here there's an add with trashed method, which makes a macro on the builder. Okay, this is a little junky, but let's see if we can make this work. We already have the test for it. Let's go back to our test. Let's get rid of this because that's just not going to work. And obviously we wouldn't want to put it on every single model anyway. We have access to the builder here. We could do a similar approach where we said this add extension, and we passed it the builder. And down here we could just say something like private function add extension, and it would be a builder. And let's paste all that. And now we can say builder macro without default ordering. We don't need with trashed. We're not playing with that. We're just removing the scope, which would be, this is a reference to the class because it's already a scope, but now we're just going to say default orderBy, right? We just keep hard coding that magic string, which I don't like. But again, let's see if it works. Let's see if it works. Called a method database post without default ordering. Called an undefined method database post without default ordering. Without default ordering. Okay, so this did not work. I kind of would have thought that would have worked. What's different with soft deletes? It's the soft delete scope for each. Extend is not in the interface for scope. So this is like one of those magic lifecycle methods that Laravel is probably using. Yeah, here it is. With global scope. But we should be adding this ourselves. Like, we don't need their callback. We're doing it a little more forcefully here when we add it. Oh, but it doesn't. Okay. Ah, that's tricky. This is a closure. This is a closure, so it's not going to get evaluated until you actually run the query. And we're trying to add this extension, you know, at a higher level than that. We're trying to add this globally, much like we're adding the global scope. So we're not trying to do this at runtime, so to speak. We're trying to do this at the initialization point. And that's kind of the difference, because this closure is lazy evaluated, whereas the soft delete scope, this gets called when you register. If we look at the builder, when you register the global scope, it's actually getting called, you know, and therefore added on into the builder macro. Whereas this would not get added until after you performed your query. It's interesting that it doesn't actually work later in the chain, but I kind of see why it doesn't based on that. Yeah, that's tough. We would need a way in Builder to kind of have this work. Okay, so I think I'm gonna hack on this off stream, but just to prove that it works, let's comment this out and let's borrow this for a second, and let's go in Builder and let's just say something like, I'm just gonna put this here for a second. Let's just say something like public function without default ordering. Let's comment that out. And all it's really going to do is call this without global scope. It's just going to forward on to this message, but we're making it an actual method on Builder. So I think this should not complain anymore. And it passes. There we go. Cool. So if I comment this out, of course, the ordering should be wrong and we should get a false is true kind of error. Called a member function. Oh, well, of course, get on null, there's no method, this doesn't return anything. Let's fix that, return this. Let's just forward it on so get actually works. But that's proof that that method is getting called. Return false is true, line 51. Yep, there it is. So that should be 3 because we never flipped the order back. So this is working. Now, of course, I don't want to just willy-nilly throw this on builder. I mean, I could, but I probably want to do this in a cleaner way. So I think what I'm going to do is probably stop the stream here, and I'll either look into making this a scope a little bit more like the soft deleting happens. It's just a little tough because we have this property that we're trying to use, and I feel like I'd like to use a default scope, but I just don't think it's going to work because we don't have... We've got that property that we need to kind of access and see, should we even be adding this global scope? And that needs to be an initialize, which is a little weird. I don't think it'd be uncommon to put... I don't want to clutter up the builder with it. It's not builder specific. I'd like to keep it all contained in this trait. So I just need to find some kind of method that I can do here that's like static, you know, add. Oh, holy shit. There's an add extension. Oh my God. Oh no, that's mine. Oh, psh. I was like, oh man, that's awesome. Oh goodness. Okay. I don't think... Is builder get global macro, flush macros? Oh, here's a macro. Here's a macro. Hey, here we go. Here we go. There we go. Just add a macro to the builder. It's macroable. Duh, why wouldn't it be? Okay, cool. Let's get rid of this. And let's get rid of, did I get rid of what was on the builder? Sorry. Git status. Oh, do I not have Git installed here? I probably don't. And or Docker crapped out. Screw you, Docker. Let's just restart Docker for a second while I go back and check. I think we got this. So let's slow down and get that fixed. Let me go back to Builder, and yeah, that's what I was going to do. I was going to make sure this is removed. So there should be no changes in this file whatsoever. Okay, so if let's just rehash this here while Docker's restarting. If you already have the global scope, get on out of here because we know we've initialized everything. If you don't have any orderBy stuff set up, then here's the default orderBy. And then builder macro, does this just overrides the macro. I wonder if there's like a has, that there is. So we would probably want to say the same thing here, like if static, or wait, no, if builder has macro, is it has global macro? What's the difference? Get global macro, has macro, is set local macros. What would be the difference? What's the difference between a global macro and a local macro? I guess the local macro is probably only for that model is the difference, which makes sense. We don't necessarily want this to be a global macro. So you know what? I'm not going to worry about adding a little check for that. That's a little too fancy probably. Okay, this should restart now. Let's see if this runs. Vendor, let's just copy what we had. That's a long statement anyway. All right, so I'm hopeful that this will pass. It does not. Too few arguments passed to builder, concerns closure passed, 0 passed in, and exactly 1 expected. Oh, does it not pass in the builder? Why would it not pass in the builder? macro, when does it actually get called? Has macro, flush macros, call static. Bind to static class, macro parameters. I thought it would have an instance of itself, or is it just this in here? You don't need that. It's just this inside of here. No, that's not right. I don't think that's right, but we'll try it. It is right. The macro, you're making a, yeah, macros are kind of weird because you're making a macro on the builder, and then when this closure gets called, I think it's bound to the current instance. That's why, yeah, that's why you don't have to pass it in. Yeah, if macro is an instance of closure, then bind the macro to that and then call it with whatever parameters were passed to the original macro method. Now what's weird about this is, can you chain something here? I'm curious. Can I chain something like where title is post 2 and this still get called? So size is 2. Okay, that's good. Size is 2. And then if we limit it to just those 2, not in order, then it should be 0 and 1, 2 and 3. So the first one should be this one and the next one should be that. So let's see if this works. I just want to prove that you can chain it. Yeah, you can. Okay, well, hey. Okay, let's undo that. I think this is ready to PR. This works that way, and it's all contained within this has order. So I might clean this up with maybe a constant of some kind. I might make these names a little more whatever, like I might call this has ordering or something, or orders property, or I don't know. If people have an idea, throw it in the chat. I'm gonna catch up on the chat here for a second, but yeah, if you have any final comments, throw them in there while I'm catching up, and then we'll end things. Might want to remove the for in the test name. For when is what you have currently. Oh, is that what people were chatting about earlier? Oh yeah, nice. Okay, cool. Test does not add global scope when property is not set. There we go. Nice. Hey Haas, what's going on? Off topic. How often do you stand when working? This in my office downstairs is a standing desk, so whenever I'm here, I'm standing. It's not motorized. I've pre-built it. But most of the rest of the day, I'm on, the MacBook Pro, chasing Izzy around the house. So I'm normally sitting in those scenarios. Hi, I believe you can directly call without global scope on test. Yes. Yeah, I could, of course, have said, without global scope and then default order by. But this kind of emphasizes the main point. I kind of want to hide that in some kind of way. You could do the same thing, I suppose, even with like, soft delete, soft delete scope or whatever it is. Anyway, soft deleting scope or whatever that scope was, you could actually call and turn off soft delete that way. But to the second point, I like that you can say like, with trashed or whatever, and it works. So it's just a little convenience going back to that, without default ordering. So anyway, I think this is good to clean up. It's got a test. It proves that it works. It's only getting initialized for that single model. It's all kind of self-contained, not only in the macro and global scope, runtime, but also in the actual static code. This trait just kind of does it all, and it's uniformly added. So whether this is like has orders or has ordering or has default order, or maybe I put it in global scopes. You know, I don't really know. So I'm just going to kind of try to play with these names for a minute, because I know Taylor really, you know, I think he wraps his head around these kind of things when you really nail that naming. I think it's a lot, again, as just like I talk about in base code, like it just communicates the intent better. So I think taking a few more minutes to figure this out off stream before I make the PR is worth it, because it really kind of communicates that. So okay, so I think to that point, I will get this PR'd. I'll share on Twitter when the PR is out there. Hopefully you all can leave some additional comments. Otherwise, I'll schedule some streams for next week and see you all then. Thanks for joining.